going on, people? Happy 4th of July. Hope you guys had a fun time shooting off some fireworks. Hopefully nobody was injured. Hopefully nobody lost any hands, unlike Sayid in this episode, who may have seemed to have lost whatever shred of moral conscience he had left going for him. But then again, when you're literally strapped to a tree being interrogated by 5 white guys in the 70s of all places, I mean, can you exactly blame a guy? Although I will say that even though I know that it's coming, every time I see him shoot Ben as a kid, I'm just like, God damn, Sayid shot a kid. I mean, I know it's Ben, but shit, he still shot a kid.
It feels like in media, like especially movies and TV, which are so exposed, like killing a kid is like a no-go. Like just take Cujo, for example. Like in the book, the kid dies. In the movie, he survives. That's like the line that's kind of, and then just this is like the most popular show in the world at the time, right? And they just shoot a 12-year-old.
The show was like, really, really confident in terms of its audience at this point, being like, okay, we are more than halfway through the season now. We are on episode 10 of 17. We only have 6 weeks left of recapping this season as far as that goes. It's a little longer than last season, but like I said, we were in the point of where it's like, we got to pick up the pace each and every episode now. And now in the second half of the show, we were bouncing around so much. They're being filled in on so much story over the course of the first 8 episodes. First with the first 5 and the time hopping, and then with the last 3 and the kind of filling in the gaps as far as what happened with all the different branches of characters and where they ended up. And now last week, the Oceanic Six are officially back on the island, but now separated by time. You have one group that's in the 70s. You have one group that's in the present day. And now with this half of the season on the back half wrapping it up, now we're filling in not just the plot threads of, okay, how the hell are we going to branch these timelines and get these 2 groups back together, but we're also filling in the gaps as far as certain questions we had left over. There were still a lot of questions left over, not only for the first half of the season, but really going back to season 4, where we thought we had gotten all the answers as far as, once the Oceanic Six got off the island. But it turns out, no, there was still a lot that we were not privy to. Obviously the Jeremy Bentham episode did a lot in terms of filling in the gaps as far as what happened when Locke visited each member of the Oceanic Six and tried to recruit them in order to come back to the island. But in this episode, but as just as well, the season also at this point is, in addition to kind of filling in those gaps, it's also taking characters that we have become so used to at this point. We know all these guys. We've literally been spending years with them at this point if you're watching the show in real time. And now it's starting to do that thing that a lot of shows now love to do, but back in the day, it was still kind of a risk. And again, it's one of many, many instances in which Lost was really ahead of the curve in terms of its storytelling, in terms of its presentation, which is where they're like, what if we took the characters that you thought you knew so well and we started to present new sides of them? What if we took Sayid, who up until this point we would say has been a pretty moral figure? Obviously we know that he's done some dirt. He suffered a horrific amount in his past due to everything that he has been with, as a member of the Iraqi Republican Guard. And now, with the opening sequence of this episode, we're going to present a scene from his childhood that we've never seen before, in which he basically pulls, ironically, a scene that we've seen with another character as well, with Mr. Echo way back in season 2, where Mr. Echo became a dangerous mercenary by killing someone in place of his brother, who was being forced to by this group of mercenaries. And now we see the same thing, where he's basically, the whole thing, they're being tested by their dad. The older brother can't do it. And then Sayid comes in and kills the chicken for him. And it's basically setting us up for Sayid, up until this point, we knew was capable of this stuff, but what if we got to a point where he was pushed to the brink, he was pushed to the edge, and now you have him stranded in the 70s, unlike Jack, Kate, and Hurley, who were thankfully found by Jin and Sawyer and given this gracious welcome into Dharma. Unfortunately, Sayid was found in the woods, just kind of roaming around, and before he even had a chance to figure out what the hell was going on, he was basically forced into a jail cell and treated as a subservient human being for the pure and simple fact that this, conveniently all-white group, or at least all-white-looking group, believe him to be an other. Like, at this point, I still cannot figure out if this is, really, really clever or just really, really indicative of the writers' room's just very abundant racism at this point. But either way, it's the beginning of Sayid's descent into darkness for all of Lost fans and what they're familiar with at this point.
Yeah, the whole episode was like, oh, this is like an early season Lost. So we're really focusing on one character in this episode, like especially in recently, season 4 or 5, it's been more ensemble, more jumping between, before we had the freighter and the and the whole the 4 new characters. Now we have this whole Dharma thing, which, by the way, I'm really loving the whole Dharma roster of characters. Like Rosinski's just this guy. He hates everyone. Like he's just there for the job. Horus is like this kind of he's like the seemingly good guy, but even he takes the vote to kill Sayid at the end. So these are not the best of people. But the whole episode is focusing on Sayid. I'm like mentally preparing for this. Like, okay, is this the Sayid death episode? Like, is this how it's gonna go? And at the end,
the ending happens, and you're like,
the ending ends. You're like, okay, this is not. This is like the complete what the WTF episode of, like, you thought the show was going here. No, it's you have no idea, because even last episode, I'm like, okay, this is what the second half of season 5 is going to be about. And like, they're going to move around the Dharma Initiative, and maybe they're going to be involved in the Swan Station or whatever. And in this episode, Sayid kills a young Ben, which
does he?
I don't know. He seems pretty definitive. If he survives, that's like I don't know. But that's until next week. But yeah, it was this whole Sayid centered thing. It's like we get back to the flashback format. We see how he got on the plane. So it's not him purposely recreating Kate in the pilot of being on a ship with a marshal. No, it's the sins of his past, where Ben had him working for him, coming back, and then of course destiny interferes like it always does with Lost. He gets put on the same plane, and it's also a very good comedic bit. It's like, I'm very superstitious about flying. Can we get the next plane? Like, you know what? Yes, you've earned the next plane, but unfortunately, the show must go on.
The show must go on, indeed. And Luke, I mean, come on, with how many episodes of this show that you've watched up at this point, you should by now be fully well aware that nothing on this show has happened randomly, and nothing has happened by coincidence. That is not just a rare coincidence that, like, oh, the sins of his past are catching up to him. There is a very deliberate reason as to why he needed to be on that plane in order to go back to the island. But more on that later. Like I said, just a basic brief recap of the episode. On island, we're entirely in the 70s in Dharma. Basically, Sayid is going back and forth to the jail cell. He's being visited by young Ben, who's bringing him food. Sawyer is trying to play back and forth in terms of, like, making sure that he can, save his friend while also not blowing his cover. And if anything as well, this episode is also kind of indicative of Sawyer as well, how even though Sawyer has, like, he's finally found his peace, he's finally found, like, a place to call home ultimately, the fact that he is so willing to, like, placate Dharma at the risk of his friends, at the risk of the people who he has, come to call his compatriots. I mean, yeah, it's been a long time that he's been there. He's been there for 3 years, and all of a sudden they show up, and there's even a very funny line at the end with the flaming Dharma van where he's like, you guys are here for 5 minutes and everything turns to shit. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. I feel like at this point you guys should be used to that. But it is rather sad. And I feel like Sayid realizes this as well. And that's kind of part of it. It's like, wow, it's like, look, Sawyer, I know we were never the best of friends, but, like, we spent a long time on this island together. We were compatriots, and now you're going to side with these people.
It also doesn't feel like it's only 3 months for them, but we've been watching this for, like, almost 2 years now.
Right.
So it's like, and when the show coming out, they're watching it over like 5 years. So it's
right.
Like, it's one of those things like Breaking Bad takes place over a year or so, right?
Right.
And this
just
takes place over 3 months. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, there was a reason why they had to write Walt off early on in the show, because they're like, yeah, it's not exactly going to work if it's only supposed to have been like a week or two, but all of a sudden he's like 6'2", it's not going to, and his voice is deeper. That's not going to work. But yeah, so, and so there's a lot that's going on in Sayid's head right now, obviously, the drug trip where they take him to be interrogated by this guy called Oldham, this famously the epicenter of the title, He's Our You, where Sawyer is like, look, I'm trying to do the best I can here.
Which, by the way, is another great Lost, like, small character bit. Is like, okay, we need just like, the weirdest guy. He lives in, like, this tent outside of the compound or whatever. He talks funny, but it's like Lost is really good at these, like, small moment characters. Like, what's the Ukrainian guy's name from the others?
Mikhail.
Yeah. So it's that kind of philosophy. It was like, hey, he's not going to be here for a while. So how weird can we make him? So,
not here for a long time, but he's here for well, not a good time either, but certainly a memorable time. Yeah, played by famous character actor William Sanderson. He's been in a million things. WB, I forgot his character's name from Deadwood, but he was on all 3 seasons of Deadwood. He also had a small but memorable part on True Blood as well. Famous character. Every time you show up in something, you know some shit's about to go down, especially when he's putting droplets on a cube that they force feed to Sayid in order to get him to spill his guts. And I'm like, okay, well, it's the 70s, so it has to be an early form of like acid or LSD or something like that. And then Sayid just spills his guts everywhere, basically about like, yeah, I was on a plane. This is actually my second time on the island. I'm from the future. I know everything that's going to happen. All of you are going to die. And naturally, of course, the only thing that Radzinski here is like, he saw the swan. He has to die, and I'm just like, dude, calm the hell down. Like, you don't even know. It's one of those things where you can just tell that Radzinski is going to be a problem character going forward. And again, credit where credit is due to Lost, how they're still able to like introduce this whole new batch of characters that we've only had some baseline familiarity with. Like I said, we had the Ghost of Horus at the end of season 3. Radzinski was mentioned by the Clancy Brown character back in season 2. When Desmond was being coached as far as how to operate the Swan Station. So these are all figures that we have heard about throughout the course of the show, and very, very wisely so. The show is like using that and now using it as a means to like introduce them as fully fleshed out characters, playing off of our already kind of existing familiarity with it. Very superhero-esque, if you will, playing off of characters that we have some existing familiarity with and now introducing them so we don't have to do all the legwork of introducing them and setting them up and all that. It's once again brilliant in terms of its examination of time travel and time travel stories as well. How also as well how everything is kind of like a closed loop. How everything that's happened has happened already, and nothing that they do.
Which is the title of the next episode.
Yeah, exactly. So so some pretty obvious foreshadowing there. And meanwhile, as well, the other thing about Sayid's flashbacks as well is that it's doing the thing where it is really filling in the gap. So like I said, we knew a certain amount as far as what happened when Sayid got off the island. We knew that his love Nadia died. We knew that he was recruited by Ben in order to basically, murder all these people in order to help dismantle Widmore's organization. We knew that he was feeling a lot of remorse over having worked for Ben and as such was trying to, but he was also stuck in this weird back and forth position where he wanted to still continue to help his friends, but he despised everything that Ben said. We knew obviously from the Jeremy Bentham episode that he was working somewhere in South America when he was visited by Locke when he got off the island, and obviously, did not trust Locke at all and did not want to go back. Next thing you know, he's visited by Ben, who tells him both that Locke has died and that someone is watching Hurley. We obviously know now that like Ben is once again just, manipulating people in order to fulfill his own ends. What those are, who knows? But regardless, Sayid immediately jumps to, and that's what brings him to, rescuing Hurley from the insane asylum at the end of season 4, which brought us to the beginning of season 5. And then we have everybody going their separate ways before Jack and Ben and Son go to visit Eloise at the church where she tells them how to get back to the island. And next thing you know, we saw Sayid on the plane, and now we know why. It's because he was visited by this strange woman who seemingly was a bounty hunter there.
Yeah, I didn't know we still had those.
Yeah, it is still very much a thing. But even that one, again, like, me knowing who that character really is and what her real purpose is.
Of course she is someone.
Of course she's someone else. Again, I'm like, you've been watching the show for how long now? You should be used to this. You should know that nothing is ever as it seems. Everybody is always using fake code names. Everybody
she's getting a lot of screen time in the previous episodes, and in this one, it's like, okay, whose daughter is she? Who's like whatever. So
that's the character of Alana, and she will play. She will be one of the new main cast members who is up to main cast status in season 6, but she's introduced as a recurring player up until this point. Like I said, she was already also talking with the Caesar character in the Jeremy Bentham episode.
I'm guessing he's someone too.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like I said, these characters are not here by mistake at this point. Like I said, we are very late in the show. Nothing is happening by design. Even, like I said, the original Oceanic 815 crash, you'll see even that was by design. Like nothing in this show was by design. It may not have been initially in the first couple seasons, but now when we're in the second half, when Lindelof and Cuse have had time to really map out and plan and figure out exactly how they're going to make all the loose threads of the show
map out backwards, together. Presumably.
That's exactly it. Like I said, there's a reason why they're constantly referencing the Swan Station. They're referencing the incident. Like I said, everything is one big loop. It's just a matter of putting the pieces together, which is what the second half of the season is. And speaking of putting the pieces together, so once again, still introducing another mystery where you're like, okay, so I already talked about how last week set up the mystery of, okay, now the tables have turned. Now in season 2, Sayid was interrogating Ben, who was being held prisoner. Now in this season, Ben is attempting to help Sayid escape. as he is being held prisoner. Ben at this point in the show, based off what we got from his backstory episode in Man Behind the Curtain, Ben has already gone out into the forest and talked with Richard. He's already kind of started to formulate his plan in order to go and join the others. And believing that Sayid...
And there's a great line at the beginning, Sawyer asks Sayid how he's feeling. A 12-year-old Benjamin Linus just brought me a sandwich. How do you think I'm feeling? Which is like, that's a very self-aware thing.
The one-liners are great. They are
self-aware line from the writers there. It's like, yeah, this is the show at this point.
Yeah. Like, if you're not on board, then, like, you should know better at this point. Like, what the hell are you still doing? Like, trying to come onto a show in season 5. You should, at the very least, be somewhat familiar with the show at this point. But, yeah, so all of this is tying together. And obviously, Sayid is very conflicted because he's like, okay, this is a child, but I know who this child is going to grow up to be and all the pain that he is going to cause me. And again, Sayid, like I said, Ben has caused a lot of the characters a lot of pain and a lot of grief over the years, But the two I feel like that Ben, I should say, always caused the most amount of grief to were Locke and Sayid. Literally to the point where 3 episodes ago, he murdered Locke just so that he could basically use that as an impetus to continue to fulfill his role as the Messiah figure that brings everybody back together, and once again seeming like the man with all the answers when he really has none. And Sayid is a man who he literally manipulated into murdering all of these people and turning him into a weapon, which is something that Sayid tried to outrun for his entire life. And now Sayid is being faced with him as a literal child. And of course, the young Ben has no idea who Sayid is. He has no clue, what their relationship will look like in the future. And now Ben is like, okay, you're an other. I want to be an other. If I help you escape, you can help me. And it also doesn't help that, Sayid also has a run-in with Ben's asshole father, played, funnily enough, by John Grease, Greg from White Lotus, for all the White Lotus fans out there. And of course, you have that little twinge of sympathy that he has for him. He's like, oh man, he's got an abusive dad. I can relate to that. Practically every character on the show.
Every character. It's like, oh yeah, Sayid had one too. Of course.
Everyone has one. Because
we knew that without knowing it. The requirement
to be a character on the show is you have to have an abusive father figure. So naturally, again, Ben comes up with a solution. He's going to send a flaming Dharma van into Dharmaville as a big old distraction, and then he's going to bust Sayid out. The two of them run out into the woods. At first, of course, after Dharma takes the vote to unceremoniously execute Sayid, which Sawyer, of course, tries to fight off. And then they're like, look, he violated the truce. We have no clue what he's talking about. He clearly knows a lot about us. It's probably better if we all do. Again, I can understand where Dharma's coming from, subtracting all of our kind of knowledge about who the characters are. And it definitely doesn't help that, besides the fact that everything that Sayid would say to them makes no sense, the rest of what he's saying, I can understand why they would think that he is an other. So they all vote to kill him. Sawyer tries to free Sayid, but Sayid decides to stay because it's like, I finally know what my purpose is. Young Ben pulls off the plan, gets him out of there. They're running in the woods. They end up running into Jin driving the Dharma van. Sayid
poor Jin, like the nicest guy on the show, wrong place.
Constantly wrong place, wrong time. Literally separated by 30 years from his wife, who conveniently was the only one of the main Oceanic Six who got stranded in the present. And I'm like, okay, that's the only one that reeks a little bit of plot mechanics there, but okay. Knocks out Jin, takes his gun, and shoots young Ben in cold blood right there. And he's like, it's the classic thing that we are so used to in TV shows where it's like the one character is like, I'm sorry. And then the next scene, they're like, oh, for what? And then they pull off some dastardly, like they punch them, they knock them out, they shoot them. Like every time, I have been trained at this point watching TV shows to know that every time a character says, I'm sorry on a show, it's going to be followed by them doing something absolutely heinous. But this might take the cake as far as that goes.
Yeah, like I think Breaking Bad probably has like multiple ones of this. Better Call Saul is just like, it's like a staple of like high drama TV. It's like, okay, I'm sorry, but this has to happen, and then that the results will be, I'm sure, catastrophic, or maybe not. Maybe he's somehow alive. Maybe he was never alive the whole time. Who the hell knows anymore?
All will be revealed, or at least this one thing will be revealed, and then more questions will be brought up.
Yeah, well, let me just read off what I messaged you immediately after the episode ended, because it was my
one of
brain.
My favorite instant Luke responses after watching an episode.
You probably woke up at like 6 a.m. and see this barrage of messages. Like I finished the episode, I say, are we in a split Ben-less timeline? A million new theories just burst out at once, and not one of them feels right. Does Ben not remember Sayid because this particular Ben never met Sayid, and then the Ben who did meet Sayid is dead? Melting face emoji. Yeah, and did the timelines get split in one of the hatch incidents, or were they always split? And the island is this gateway through timelines. And Sayid called the swan explosion the incident, and the finale is called the incident. I don't know. There's a lot going on.
This is so funny because I was literally watching a clip that's going to happen in a scene in either the next episode or in a couple episodes from here, where basically Hurley and Miles basically end up having an iteration of this exact same conversation. So
Hurley's always been the audience in.
oh yeah,
like,
Hurley is the
trying to
audience
make
at this
sense of
point.
things.
Like, as if we didn't already know that. But yeah, oh man, like I said, you thought, like I said, I remember only a couple episodes ago where you're like, okay, well they're back on the island. Well, what's gonna happen now? And now you're like, oh man,
Yeah.
just when you thought this show gave you everything, it just gets crazier. There really is no other show like Lost. It
And
really
we
is
haven't
one of the
even
best
we
shows
didn't
there is.
even touch on the other half of the timeline in this episode.
Correct.
Like
Correct.
whatever you keep alluding to what Locke actually is at this point is like we haven't even gotten to that. And
Oh well, I'm surprised that you haven't figured that out by now.
well, I don't know. I'm too focused on Christian being the smoke monster, and then there's like another thing, or are they all
Who
the
said
same?
that Christian was the only form that the smoke monster ever took?
I don't know. It's like is this smoke monster, this time entity that exists in all time? It's like, and the island, but we just have to keep.
Let me
watching.
put it this way:
There's a lot going on.
Lost is really, really great at distracting you at telling you the answer to something and then distracting you so much that you forget about it. And then by the time you come back to the answer, and you're like, that it feels completely new because you're like, oh wait, I already kind of could have figured this out, but oh, there were so much else distracting me that I didn't even think about it or realize. So
yeah, just a lot is happening. A lot still has to happen. Faraday's off on his field trip somewhere. Who knows where he is? So yeah.
Yes, all of that and more, which we will continue to cover as we break down the timeline and try to put some pieces together as this show is doing for the rest of the month. Don't worry. Once we get to the variable, that's when things will finally start to like really come together cohesively. And like I said, because that's the other thing too, we still have Chekhov's hydrogen bomb that's just buried somewhere out there too. That's just waiting to rear its ugly head. So
it is a lot of show. Like they don't make a lot of show like this. It's all
they
like
really
one plot
like
line,
this.
one thing. No, it's like,
oh no,
yeah,
18 different plot lines, 18 different things happening. So with that being said, that is our recap of this week's episode of Lost. He's our you. Make sure you guys stay tuned later on for our House of the Dragon recap later tonight. We're having a lot of fun recapping this season so far. Is it still the majesty that we thought it is? Who knows? But stay tuned later on tonight. Make sure you follow us on YouTube and on Spotify. If you're listening to us on Spotify, that episode will be coming back immediately right next. But Luke, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
they can follow me at Luke Reviews on YouTube. What have I watched? I haven't watched much this week. Watch Evil Dead Burn next week.
Yes, Evil Dead Burn is coming this week.
Haven't watched X-Men 97 yet, but they're doing a whole scattered across time thing too, right? So
yep,
gotta get to that.
It's the thing.
It's a great thing.
Yes, it's when in doubt, always do just scattered across time. Yeah, no, I'm actually catching up on some prestige movies this month in order to basically complete my 25 for best movies of the century project, which I wasn't gonna do. And then Nathaniel A. Hart released a list that I'm like, buddy, La La Land is not the best movie of the century. I'm sorry. No. So I immediately had to do my comeback list. So I'm working on that. I watched Inside Llewyn Davis for the first time yesterday. It was excellent. Really good movie. It's a sad movie, but oh man, is it good. So Children of Men will be next. I'll finally be watching that, getting that one out of the way. That's been a big blind spot of mine for many years. So I'm working on that project as well. Got a couple other fun ones on the list: Battle Royale, Audition, Memories of Murder, Assandies. I've never seen it. I've heard that movie. Oh man, you want to talk about messed up twists. So man, that movie makes Old Boy look like The Sixth Sense in terms of messed up twists. But so that's the project that I'll be working on. And Luke, we're only 2 weeks out from Odyssey, baby.
Yeah, that was like, I watched the latest trailer. It's like 2 weeks. Oh, I should probably like read the thing.
Yeah, probably. It's not a light read either. My big thing that I'm trying to do is I want to watch the early 2000s movie Troy before that movie.
Oh yeah, definitely need to watch that.
Because I feel like at this point, I'm like, that movie's written by Benioff and Weiss. It's got such a massive cast. It's just a staple of early 2000s epic filmmaking. They were trying to do Lord of the Rings, but with Greek myths. It didn't quite work out at the time, but that movie's had an interesting track record in the last 20 years since it's come out. Sean Bean is Odysseus, Brian Cox is Agamemnon, Brad Pitt is as Achilles. I'm still like, it was still while Eric Bana was just kicking ass at everything that he was in. Garrett Hedlund is Achilles' cousin. that gets killed because they think he's Achilles. Orlando Bloom, also the early 2000s king, is Paris. Diane Kruger's in it. Early Rose Byrne, Brendan Gleeson, Peter O'Toole. There's a lot of people in that movie. So that is one that I definitely.
There's a lot of people in
watch.
Odyssey, and a lot of things
yes,
we haven't even seen yet from the trailers.
Oh, yes, there are. I'm very, very excited again because I found out that Samantha Morton is playing Cersei, which I'm very excited for because that's perfect casting.
Turn all those dudes to pigs. How are they gonna do that? Did Nolan get a bunch of pigs?
I don't know, but if there's one thing I've learned at this point, it is to never underestimate Nolan. Also, I did a Christopher Nolan draft over on Mac Movie Reviews channel as well. Me, Mac, and Rod, our little Oreo podcast that we have come to become known as, doing our thing there. Had a lot of fun with that one. So like I said, we've still got so much. July's a little bit more of a lax casual month, but we still have, like I said, the two mega giant events that are The Odyssey and then Spider-Man Brand New Day coming later this month. So make sure you guys stay tuned to that, and make sure you guys continue to stay tuned to all the fun stuff that we have coming out for the rest of the year. And as always, people, 12 seasons in a short film, and get lost. We'll see you guys next week. People, it's Sunday night. Happy 4th of July, but we are here Sunday night. You guys know what that means. It's House of the Dragon recap time.
That's
Season 3, episode 3, Rhaenyra Triumphant. And guys, now that the season 2 hangover, let the real season 3 begin. Rhaenyra is officially claimed King's Landing, and oh boy, wow, did we discover in this episode, ruling a city, not easy at all. So, what did you guys think of Rhaenyra's officially first day of ruling King's Landing? Doing a bang up job, is she not?
She's got her principles, that's for sure.
Yeah, principles. We'll see how far that takes her,
right?
Or how long those last.
It's tough to rule a kingdom without any money. The Lannisters really did a good job squirreling all that away. An interesting approach by the show to show differently from the book, the Rhaenyra's trouble with power and ruling in general. She may not have a huge trouble with gaining power because she successfully did that, but to actually rule the kingdom, I thought the conversation with Alicent was very telling. And I think that, another good reason to keep that character around and keep her actively in communication with Rhaenyra to have those types of conversations.
It is easier to gain power than to wield it effectively and to maintain it, I think, is the lesson that we can take away from this episode. This episode is entitled Rhaenyra Triumphant. Very, very aptly so, considering that, after the hollowness with which she achieved her victory, the cost of losing Jace at the Battle of the Gullet, as well as taking King's Landing with relative ease and finally achieving the justice for the treason committed so long ago by Otto Hightower by striking off his head. However, at the very least, it feels this episode is the biggest indicator that that victory was short-lived and hollow, to say the least. This was probably the most focused episode, I would say, of House of the Dragon that I may have ever seen, because with the exception of, I think, the opening sequence, which sees Daemon alongside Hugh and Ulf basically forcing Ormond Hightower to give up Darren, the last of Alicent's children, or so we think. We'll be getting to that. this episode is almost entirely focused around Rhaenyra. The way in which it's shot, the way in which it's edited, we are almost entirely following her, and visually as well. The visual language of this episode is very much demonstrating her descent into madness. The use of the stretched violin chords, how they're constantly cutting in like the middle of scenes before they've had their chance to flow. The fact that at almost every instance, and this was indicated by some of the previous, next week on at the end of the first 2 episodes, but she is constantly waylaid by different people around the Red Keep, by different commoners. There always seems to be something going on. They really illustrate kind of the stress of ruling in a way that I don't even know if we ever really saw in the original Game of Thrones, whether that was just because that was just something the writers and the creatives had no interest in, or if it was just because the mechanics of how things were ruled both in the original Game of Thrones series as well as in the first 2 seasons of House of the Dragon just ran so smoothly, and obviously it serves a very important story point, considering the fact that the ultimate tragedy of Rhaenyra is the fact that she fought so long to get this claim that was withheld from her, and then once she finally gets it, the question becomes: is the damage by the high towers and everything they've done? Is it too late? Was she ever gonna have a chance to rule effectively, given everything that has happened up until this point?
Yeah, I think those are all really good questions, and I think the episode did a really good job of not really picking a clear answer. Leaving enough ambiguity for the audience to create a lot of discussion around some of her actions, and it seems like at times she's trying to do the quote unquote moral good, but it's going to have long-term consequences. Especially, you think of the banquet scene, you think of, just everything that she's kind of dealing with, and the basically the pile of shit that, the high towers and the Lannisters have left her. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of see her further kind of go down this path, and in terms of how far is she willing to bend her own moral code here. That's what I'm really looking forward to seeing.
To quote the previous mayor of Baltimore from the 4th season, of The Wire, when Tommy Carcetti, played by Game of Thrones Aidan Gillen, questioned him why he decided to stop being mayor. And he's just like, I just got tired of eating bowls of shit over and over again, because that is what ruling is, and that is what Rhaenyra is discovering in this episode. In order to rule, you just gotta eat everyone's shit.
To bring up another show that we hopefully all love, I know me and Tom love it, The West Wing. This was a very West Wing episode. This was Leo's Big Wheel of Cheese episodes, where you hear the plights of the common people, and their crazy requests, as Damon would say, that we can just choose to ignore if we want to. This episode structurally, we were with Rhaenyra the entire time. You're doing a lot of walk and talks with her, a lot of her ending up in a room where she has to talk with somebody to get more information to then move the plot along. And I think it was good to settle with Rhaenyra and really get into her headspace for as much as we can for what's to come, because this is, we're going Mad Queen. We're going, everyone is Team Black. Everything's hunky-dory. We take King's Landing, and it sucks, man. It sucks to be in power, because people turn on you. As soon as that happens, they'll cheer you. But as soon as you do something they don't like when you're in power, you're done. And she's going to have to face it.
I think probably the other thing that I love so much about this episode being so heavily focused on Rhaenyra is you get to see the relationships with, specifically from her point of view, with the other characters in her immediate vicinity in ways that we both have not seen before, and ways in which I don't think that we were ever possibly anticipating, specifically, obviously, with Daemon, with Alicent, with Corlys, with the Dragon Seas, with Mysaria, who right now seems to be the only one that's fully in her corner, hook, line, and sinker, without any questions or comments, and you just see immediately, you already can see like 10 steps out there cataloging how by the time that this show is done, each and every one of these relationships will completely be destroyed. We know, obviously, having read the books, that Corlys Velaryon ends up switching sides to the Greens, and this is the beginning of that. We know, obviously, that Daemon famously ends his life purposefully in a battle of the wills with Aemond over the God's Eye And this is kind of while he is very much still loyal to her, you can already see how their individual aims, her attempts to want to stay here and stabilize the mess that has been left with her in order to show that she is worthy of the destiny that she fought for so long, versus Daemon is like, all right, we conquered this place. Let's go conquer the world. Screw it. We got the dragons. Let's fulfill the conqueror's dream. So once again, showing that kind of, our thoughts that Daemon may have changed at the end of season 2. This episode is immediately showing, oh, no. He's just basically like, oh, now I have kind of, this prophesized dream as well in order to kind of stake my insatiable hunger on, Her interactions with Alicent as well, where she's constantly going back and forth with this kind of contentious, where she's both angry at Alicent for the things that are that were completely out of Alicent's control, which Alicent rightfully points out. She's like, I literally had no way of knowing that Aegon wasn't going to be here. I delivered on my promise that Aemond was not going to be here. You took the city without problems, and then you executed my father right in front of me. And then once we get to the Darren thing at the end, that's also another thing of where it's like, yeah, how in the hell was I supposed to know about this? So it's a combination of, I'm frustrated because of your short-sightedness, but also I need you in order to help navigate this hellscape that I've left that has kind of been left for me as well. And you also have, I think, probably the most amount of callbacks to Viserys as well, where throughout this episode, there is a constant series of questions being asked, being like, what would your father have done here? Would this have been what Viserys wanted? Was Viserys even cut out to rule? Because you have both Alicent and Daemon both essentially telling her that, like, yeah, Viserys did not live in this reality. It's unfortunate to admit that as much as we liked Viserys, and we obviously love Paddy Considine and the brilliant performance that he gave as that character, everyone and their mother kind of knows that he was not fit and not cut out to rule. So much so that one could argue that it was the decision to make him king in the first place by old King Jaehaerys that ultimately set the wheels in motion that would eventually lead to this conflict as well.
It's tough because you see a lot of things in Rhaenyra that are good. They're good for the realm. It is good. She wants to help out poor people and, beat down kind of the lords and ladies that stowed away all the food and stuff like that. But she works in half measures. And both our boy, what's his name at the
Vogler, Torrin Manderly, we finally got him.
Yeah, he reminds her, like, this is just a patch on a wound, and they'll turn on you if they want to. And Daemon says the same thing. What is the point of coming to power if you don't then want to utilize that power to further your goals and to basically think of King's, I'm here, I'm in King's Landing, I sat the throne, job done, we did it. And expect everyone else to kind of pick up and be pointed in the same direction as you. No, you have to wield power and you have to point people where that power, where you want it to lie. And she cannot or is not capable of doing that yet. And so that's the great tension. And this is a great episode to really just bury ourselves in that tension.
I agree. For me, it's the standout episode of the season so far, and I think it shows that we don't need spectacle to have a good episode of this show, which I feel like that season 2 was lacking in it.
But that's Game of Thrones classic stuff. Some of the best episodes are walking talks.
Absolutely, it's refreshing. It's refreshing more than anything.
Walking talks, yeah, exactly. It's part of the reason why we love the show. People, again, the biggest mistake that the original creators and some of the people working behind the scenes on this show as well made is assuming that we fell in love with this world, with these characters, with this property because of the spectacle. It's not. It's because of the politicking. It's because of the ruling. It's because of the fact that despite this is a fantasy series set and set to mimic a time period that happened long before our own, it is very indicative and very reflective of our current world and our current reality. And I think one of the most brilliant things that this episode does in particular is the fact that we essentially see Rhaenyra being the politician that we all wish we could get in real life, while at the same time being demonstrative of the fact that while this type of politicking is the easiest way to win over the commoners in the short term, in the long term, this will ultimately lead to nothing but more chaos and destruction, because quite literally robbing the noble houses in order to provide for the short term, as well as basically demanding that all of these houses, half of whom did stay loyal to you and did send troops down to back up your claim as well, now all must demand tribute. Now all must pay up tribute in order to supply things. And again, completely out of her control. She could not have seen how the High Towers and the Lannisters were going to rob her blind and essentially leave her with nothing. But at the same time, basically, being the champion of the commoners, that only goes so far, because as we have learned, both in Game of Thrones and in the real world, the common people's view changes on a dime.
Well, and they are doing the other smart thing, where she is shunning institutions, or she is trying to hijack them.
Yes.
And
the conversation with the High Septon in particular, I'm like, that is one of the best dialogue sequences I have seen in this show in a long time.
Us watchers of Game of Thrones know that you don't fuck with the Seven.
You do not fuck with the High Septon. You do not.
And so yeah, that is a brilliant scene, and the giving up the ships that she sent from Dragonstone with food for the people, and all of her work with Mysaries is like, if you are going to use the common people to overthrow lords that were given that, like, you need to be careful with that.
Yes.
Like, if you also want to rule in that type of way, like if you want to turn it into democracy, okay, yeah, let them go. Like, they can go do whatever they want. They can elect their leaders, and like they'll then honor them because they chose them. If you want to be the high leader, the queen, and use the common people to usurp and give you power, and then not give them anything back, like, you are in a world of hurt, lady.
It's a simple scenario, because what happens if and when like a plague hits the city, or if and when, say, obviously again, she still has 6 dragons, but if there was another like kind of major attack on the city, all eyes are on her. And all of a sudden, all of those good deeds that she did, handing out food and everything, what's that going to matter? Because now you have kind of fostered this relationship, this sense of dependency on her in a way that there is kind of no coming back from, because the moment that shit hits the fan, and you try to kind of like, oh, it wasn't me, it was them, then you look weak as the ruler, and you look ineffective. And all of that goodwill that you built up is thrown out the window. And especially, obviously, besides the spurning of all the High Lords by literally serving them rats. And I understand the motivation for sure, especially given that the majority of those High Lords seated around that table did not back up her claim. Or if they did, they waited until it was convenient enough for them. For me, I'm like, the spurning of Corlys, I'm just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is a man who literally sacrificed his family, his kingdom, his literal legacy. If he does not legitimize Alan and Adam, he has no one left. Rhaenys is gone. Yeah. Laenor is gone. Laena's gone. Laena's children are named Targaryen because they're Daemon's kids. She literally basically just walks past and doesn't even acknowledge Baela in this episode, and you're gonna, this man still commands one of like the Navy that was basically the cornerstone of your entire power play, and you're gonna spurn him? Are you out of your goddamn mind?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I think there's a lot of interesting dynamics that, especially just the banquet scene alone, she sent a message for sure to all the lords and ladies, and even if we assume like 80 to 90% of people in that room like never supported her, like you said, like probably just joined in when just because everyone
they're all
else
a bunch
was.
of Walder Freys, the late Lord Frey.
Exactly. I think she's immediately just burning bridges of people that at the end of the day are the ones governing the realm on her behalf, and is as shitty as it is to say that, oh yeah, we gotta let some poor people starve. These people are incredibly petty, and they will continue to do it again, and nothing can really stop them in the future when the next war comes around, when the next hardship comes around. They'll do the same thing over and over again. And
I think Daemon would rather embarrass them and like rub their faces in it, that he just haul those dudes down to the dragon pit, stand a dragon in front of them, and be like, you're gonna fucking listen to me, okay?
Absolutely.
Exactly. It's true. There's something to be said about, again, like, as power hungry and as motivated by the wrong things as Daemon is, there is something to be said about his approach of, look, when I do things my way, no one F's with us. You know,
look at how he ran the city watch, and look how
there you go.
almost
And
20 years later they're still fighting for him. You know.
Yep.
Well, and there is this idea of like when you take power to continue the conquering, because it keeps people's minds off of your like ultimate rulership, and you can kind of hand that down to people that are better suited for it than potentially you. But you as the conqueror can stay in the minds of people as like the ultimate authority. Yet you're just doing more war, and war is relatively easy, especially when you have dragons. And like that's basically where Daemon's coming from, is like, do you want to sit around here and politic and try and tax people to build up the wealth of our nation again? Like, no, just go steal it from all the other nations. Take them down. Yep. Be the conqueror. Do whatever needs to be done. That is how you will get and keep power.
I also love that we got some references from the world of Ice and Fire about like UT and the weird city where people, men can fly. I absolutely love that. Yeah.
Yeah, just as far as like being Ice and Fire nerds, for sure. They were dropping some bombs in this episode, to say the least. I want to bring it back to Corlys for 1 second, because for me, the thing that really, I mean, first of all, just how awkward that conversation is with poor Alan and Adam just sitting there in between as these two are on opposite ends. And Alan just looks like he would rather be anywhere else than here at this table.
The guy who plays Alan is either the worst actor of all time or he's the greatest actor of all time, because him just sitting there like,
well, again, it's again the dynamic
is so good,
where Adam at the very least has the benefit of riding the dragon.
They're doing an amazing job of looking like men that are children. Yeah. Because they are just sitting there like with their mom and dad like talking, basically being like, "Can I have a name? Can I have a name?"
Yeah, pretty much. Cool. And they're just sitting there being like, "Okay, what's gonna happen? Like, who goes next?" As like basically Rhaenyra and Corlys are politicking in front of them, and we're just like,
and again, my guy Adam is the only one that gets shunned. No, Alan doesn't get brought up there and then get not the name. But no, we have to, in the show Adam not getting the name. I mean, what is going on?
Yeah, exactly. And I love Ulf too. Again, not Ulf getting a couple of scenes.
All swung for the fences, baby.
Swung for the fences. Hey, props to him for going for it. He's like, Targaryen. Every year is like, absolutely not. That was the only time. That was the only time in the whole episode where I'm like, okay, I kind of see where you're coming from, Rhaenyra. Both because just look at him. Like, yeah, people are going to look at that and see Targaryen. And also B, after all of the work that she's done, after literally, again, and I hate to say it, but that's probably the only instance that lends credence to her argument against legitimizing Alan and Adam for Corlys, is the sense that, like, I literally, 2 of my kids are dead, and I have literally basically spent the better part of my entire political career, essentially, having to defend something that anybody with 2 eyes and a brain could see was not the case. The fact that Jace, Luke, and Joffrey were all bastards. And again, I understand where she's coming from. And to the common people, I can sort of understand that, and especially in front of people like Hugh and Ulf, who again have not exactly done a good job of backing up like kind of their worthiness as dragon riders. But in front of Corlys, again, her strongest ally, he is just like, again, he is at the end of his rope here. He literally just watched the last bit of his legacy burn right in front of him for Rhaenyra. I remember a line that he told Rhaenys at the end of season 1 when he was on his deathbed originally, where basically upon discovering about both Viserys and his brother's deaths and everything that had happened since episode 8 of season 1, he basically, his original plan was for him and Rhaenys to retire to High Tide and not take part in the conflict at all. And his justification being that, for not supporting Rhaenyra, being that woman, was complicit in our son's death and destroys everything that she touches. And while Laenor is not dead, they ultimately, again, it was a big scheme to fake his death. And so far, again, it's been, who knows how long it has been. That was 8 years ago within the timeline here. Who knows if Laenor is still alive or not? Will we ever see him again? Probably not. But regardless of that, his second point, so far, as far as everything that's happened to him personally, I'm having a hard time finding argument against that point, because so far, since his decision to support Rhaenyra, Rhaenys is dead. His entire fortune has been burned. His fleet is aflame. He literally has no heirs left. Again, Corlys Velaryon is the last person that you want to piss off. And the fact that she pisses him off so much that he straight up calls her children bastards, the same thing that got his own brother's head cut off in season 1, should tell you where we are right now.
Yeah, I wish I wish I could just replay that scene over and over again.
Yeah.
I loved it so much because it just was every single one of them. He was just teeing up for the next name that he was going to call a bastard.
Yep.
I was like, don't do it. Not that
Yep.
one. Oh, there's
He's
Luke.
like,
Oh.
Joffrey is a bastard. Lucerys, who I named heir to Driftmark, despite all evidence to the contrary, is a bastard. And the fact that he calls a recently deceased son, Jace, who literally, his body is
He saved
not
it for the end, too. He saved it for the end.
Oh, man. The
He went-
the hallucinations of Jace in the hallways? Oh.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, we need to remember that she is still grieving. I mean, both
It
her
has
sons,
been-
really, because the start, when the end of season 1 was
It
basically
has
like
been,
2
what,
months ago for the timeline
a
here.
day since the gullet? Not even, maybe 2,
Yeah.
if that?
Yeah, I love the scene. I love Viserys just going for it, and he deserves it. You ran through the laundry list of stuff that's happened. That he is a leal man. He is Corlys. Sorry, Corlys he's leal to the queen, no doubt about it. He has sacrificed a bunch. Maybe don't call Jace a bastard in front of
Yeah,
her.
but he has understandably reached a breaking point.
Yeah,
It's
here.
true. It's
Yeah.
true. It's true.
And
But
remember,
like,
too, the thing
if you
about the
do what your son's legitimized, this maybe isn't the best route.
And as well, in order to kind of back up Eli's point as well, the thing about the Valerians as well that goes all the way back to season 1 is, again, the Valerians share common lineage and blood with the Targaryens. They both hail from Old Valyria. They are not like the Hightowers or the Starks or any of the other families. They share. So even though obviously, yes, the Targaryens ruler, there has always kind of been this common understanding that it's like, yeah, the Targaryens and the Valerians, the power of both dragon and sea, are kind of what holds the power in this realm. And so when you combine all of the slights against Corlys to that as well, it's not just the fact that it's slights against him personally, it's slights against this ancient relationship between these two families that goes back decades, generations to Old Valyria.
Right. That's another good way of putting it. There's, especially considering, how Valyria was, basically the greatest empire in the known world, almost like the Roman Empire, basically, to still be able to point at each other and their bloodlines kind of holding hands throughout the generations still. It basically is kind of portrayed as like an unspoken pact between them. And yeah, I mean, it's talk about a sign of the times, how the decaying of that relationship is really going to come with the decaying of really just everything around Rhaenyra, everything around Corlys, and everything, and just really just everyone in the whole show is really gonna
pretty much
kind of just
everyone flips sides, and then we're just downward spiral.
Yep.
And I think this episode is a great teller of that, how they're basically planting the seeds. People can just flip on you at any given moment. And we're going to be seeing so much of that. And let alone the next couple episodes, but basically the rest of the show,
They're doing a great job of efficiently getting through those big ideas, because like the small folk and the lords of the land in King's Landing area, like they were taxed to death in the book, and like that is like financially what like really bugged them and like led to Rhaenyra not being held in high regard and basically getting made fun of all the time because she's fat in the book, guys. And so they really like to go that angle and making fun of Rhaenyra in the book. I'm glad they switched that for the show because that's not necessary. But yeah, they do that. The Corlys thing, like it, good to have just one big moment to really show like that's the idea. Obviously, that's not the main reason in the book why he's switching sides. And even the legitimizing thing, like it doesn't happen. Like Rhaenyra refuses to do it, but there's no like internal pathos about it. It's mostly just seen as like a political, like, yeah, duh. Like politically, I can't do this right now, man. So I really like how the show is giving emotion to this. It is giving background and then efficiently getting you through so that we all have the idea. We know from just this episode, all of the faults of Rhaenyra, all the positives that she could change those faults to in the future, and like it's just really good storytelling so far.
Indeed. So I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I want to cover as far as Rhaenyra and her rule. I feel like we've pretty much covered everything as far as basically how, again, this is setting us up for, again, the fraying relationships. We obviously now know based off of what we saw last episode, Daemon has been sent to the Vale in order to recoup Lady Aaron's tribute as well. And we can presume as well that even though we didn't see Rhaena in this episode, that he will find Rhaena in the Vale. And then that's pretty much going to be the fulfillment of the Nettle storyline. So I feel like we don't need to cover that too much. Briefly passed Baela in the hallway, didn't even acknowledge her. Baela has also been sent out.
Weird.
Yeah. Baela and Adam have also been sent out on Sheepstealer. In order to basically look for Sheepstealer and Aemon on Vhagar, because Aemon has not been seen so far since he obviously took Harrenhal. We don't see Aegon in this episode as either. Aegon and Larys are not seen in this episode at all. Shit, what else? There was one other thing. Oh, Hugh is obviously granted leave in order to go to Tumbleton in order to basically find his wife, who he has not been able to find, obviously, since they took King's Landing. So we can obviously presume that, like I said, all eyes are on Tumbleton basically for the rest of the season after the conclusion, which we still have yet to get to. But all right,
are we going to talk about Tumbleton?
Do you want to talk about Tumbleton first, or do you want to talk about Darren?
Let's talk about Darren and Ormond and the whole plan.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So I talked with you guys briefly about this before we started the live stream, which is where. So there was unfortunately a leak that happened either yesterday or today that basically revealed the entirety of the plan, which is that the Darren Targaryen that is given to Daemon at the beginning of this episode, when he basically holds Ormond's entire army at Dragon Point. It's understandable so, given that it's Caraxes, Silverwing, and Vermithor. They only have little baby Tessarion, who, well, on its own versus an army of men is pretty effective, but against those three beasts they're like, yeah. But Ormond, once again, proves to be the slippery, sly, cunning bastard that he proved. He at the very least has the intelligence to back up the smart, which is that he hands over a blatant imposter to to Daemon, which again, it's tricky because I wonder if the twist that the imposter that he hands over to be given to Rhaenyra, both as tribute and possibly to be executed in order so that there are no more contestants to her claim. Rhaenyra is obviously conflicted given the fact that while Darren obviously is a threat to her legitimacy on the throne, he is both very, very young, and also because he has spent pretty much his entire life in Old Town, he is not at all guilty of the same crimes that Aegon and Aemond have been. However, so there was a couple reasons as to why this wasn't quite a twist, as far as why I'm conflicted as far as the leaks go, because there was a lot of confusion, I guess you could say, around the casting of Darren leading up to this season. We knew that Darren was going to be in this season pretty early on, both given how he was mentioned in season 2 and the fact that we saw Tessarion flying over the Hightower fleet as they were marching up at that end montage in the finale of season 2. But there was a lot of confused casting. There was a rumor that it was going to be some Swedish actor whose name I can't remember. Then it was announced that it was going to be this guy, Charlie Gordon. And it wasn't until this season first premiered that the official confirmed casting was Benjamin Evan Ainsworth, who also is going to be playing Link in the upcoming Legend of Zelda live-action adaptation. Now, we saw Darren in the first episode once we saw Ormond Hightower's army, but with red hair. And naturally, we were all confused. They're like, wait, all the Targaryens have white hair. Aegon and Aemon and Helena, his three siblings, all have white hair. Why would Darren have red hair? And so then you have this other person who is clearly not Darren being handed over to Daemon, and is revealed at the end that this is an imposter, that Ormond basically found some random low-born family and basically commandeered their son in order to basically pose as Darren. It's a very, very common plot that happens all the time in order to protect it. And so, but I guess my question is, would this twist, if it even is a twist, have been effective if the leaks hadn't happened? Because basically this entire thing leaked out like earlier about yesterday before the episode aired.
I think the average viewer who is maybe familiar with the Game of Thrones, on-screen universe at this point, good chunk of them probably aren't looking into leaks or anything like that, or the books or whatever it might be, because at this point they kind of would have, I feel like most general audiences probably aren't paying attention to that sort of stuff, and I feel like it'd probably be an effective twist, where you can kind of see that, there's this boy, like, oh, you can understand why he's being quiet, obviously that, from just a writing cinematography standpoint, just the kind of way that they kind of portray him in this episode, they kind of leave you feeling that there's a little more to this character. And then, suddenly you get the twist that, okay, well, shit, he's not even he's not even Darren. So we've got a rogue dragon rider out there when we've supposedly got them to bend the knee. So I think it's really good for setting up conflict for the future episodes here.
And also just within kind of the logistics of the universe as well, I feel like another pretty big indicator would have been the fact that when Darren was handed over to Daemon, Darren was handed over to Daemon in the beginning, that Caesarion would have followed, right? Because the dragons basically are like so like the rules and logistics of the dragon riding, they really are kind of making up as they go along. It's slippery to say the least. The whole how would Sea Smoke be able to claim a new rider if Rhaenyra is still alive sort of a logistic kind of hangs over everybody's head, as well as the fact that Vhagar, despite being the oldest and largest and most kind of curmudgeon-y dragon possible, immediately followed Aemon back to King's Landing in episode 7 of season 1 after he had only claimed him like hours before. So like the logistics of the dragons and their loyalty to their riders is kind of slippery at best. But I feel like that would have been a pretty obvious tell. And also the fact that Daemon falls for what would seem like an obvious rule. Like, yeah, okay, neither him nor Rhaenyra nor Alicent have seen Darren in years. He spent his entire life in Old Town. They don't know. But the fact that Caesarion doesn't even react when Darren gets his rider, whom he's been bonded to since a hatchling, wouldn't even react. Like that to me was, I'm like, oh, if I'm gonna nitpick this hard, like.
Well, I don't even think you have to nitpick it very hard. It shows the strength of this episode that I say that it's this strong, and this part is so stupid. This is a bad way to tell whatever story they're trying to tell, or whatever characteristic they're trying to give to Ormond, like that they felt that this was necessary for. Like, obviously, we knew that it was a fake Darren, but even as like a book reader, and obviously not all show watchers also know what's going to happen in the book. Like I know what happens, in Tumbleton and stuff like that and all that. Like, I know that Darren is, fighting and on, Caesarion, like fighting past this point, wherever it may be. And so, like, to think that he would just get handed over, and then I'm like, okay, well, even if it is actually him, I'm like, what are they going to even do? Like, he's going to have to break out, and like Ormond isn't standing down. He's just faking this, obviously. So if I'm then just going like, well, because I have all the knowledge, I know where these people are supposed to be and all that sort of stuff, I can just step back and look at it as a story that the story writers are trying to tell, and I think it falls flat. I don't think it works super well. So I don't think it does the job that it wants.
So my question to you then, in following up that point, is do you think that this is just their blatant way of holding up a middle finger to the book readers and basically being like, yeah, we know that you've read the book, we don't care, we're basically just doing whatever we want?
I think they wanted there to be like some generalmanship, like a good general pulling kind of a ruse and stuff like that. They chose not to do it with Daemon and Harrenhal. And instead they're like, well, let's just have Ormond do it. Like, he's supposed to be a good general. We'll have him do a clear, like, this guy's a crafty leader and like is gonna, like, he's giving him the edge even before the Turncloaks part happens. So like, that's all they're doing. So just do it a different way. Like, this just isn't interesting at all, especially when it gets leaked and like ruins it. But I don't even think you need that to like consider it just a plot point that doesn't quite work.
Right. So obviously, again, it's a source of conflict with Rhaenyra, one of many, many conflicts that she's dealing with, that she's attempting to rule. Again, it's kind of placed on the back burner. So even though, again, I feel like anybody could kind of predict, because all the pieces are there, that this kid that's been handed over to her is not Darren, by the end, it's just another source of frustration for her as well. They're like, oh, Ormond Hightower has deceived me. And then next thing you know, she gets approached by, the Dragon Keeper at the end, who barely escaped from Tumbleton, basically saying that, like, yeah, the Hightower host has taken Tumbleton. They've taken the city hostage and everything. And my whole thing is, I'm like, okay, so this is starting to get a little bit contradictory, because Ormond is supposed to be this brilliant general who concocted this whole scheme to hand over a fake Darren so they could protect the real Darren and continue to contest their claim. But it's still, again, they don't know where Aemond and Vhagar are because they've disappeared from Harrenhal. Again, they don't even know if Aegon's still alive. And your decision is instead to use, and while brave as Darren is, and again, I respect the kid, balls of steel for sure, for sticking with his, with his uncle, or whatever the relationship is there, because Ormond is Alicent and Gwen's cousin. Basically,
first cousin once removed.
First cousin once removed, sure. Again, balls of steel on the kid for sticking with it with Ormond and his cockamamie plan.
But they're supposed to be having like success after success. Like that duo exactly. Is
they
like
skipped over the whole battle of the honey wine.
Yeah, they don't even. You don't even know that. Just show them in a battle. Don't show them like marching at the end of season 2 and like him flying over the top. Like show them being successful, because you're supposed to like know that these guys are like a huge thorn in the side, and they're going to be the army that if there is one to like stand up to Daemon, like this is the one.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of telling us and not showing us ultimately. And it's the point where, as much as I love this episode, as much as this is easily the episode of the season so far, it's little things like that that are slowly starting to like really creep up and get in my craw. As far as like, it's a little thing for me each episode. It's like, oh, the dragon seed's not being there, the battle of the gullet, the certain things that we talked about how they handled the fall of King's Landing in last episode. And now this episode, where as brilliant, and I mean as brilliant of their handling of Rhaenyra's current rule of King's Landing is the Darren and Ormond of it all, and how it's so blatantly setting us up for, oh, this is supposed to be the latest in a long line of dominoes that are supposed to be clearly setting us up for Rhaenyra's fall into madness. It's just like, it feels like a whole lot of conveniences that just need to happen for plot's sake.
Let me see what you guys think about this. This is kind of a look ahead, like setting the stage for what we think the TV show might be doing. But so they say that Ormond is in Tumbleton and like is burning shit, and it's not good. That's not the way it is in the book.
Right.
And that Hugh's wife is
Hugh
there.
We know is on his, and it you saw it in the weeks ahead that Hugh and Vermithor are flying to Tumbleton.
If Ormond is currently there harassing the people of Tumbleton, we would imagine that Hugh's wife would be a part of that and is being harassed by Ormond. Why would he switch? That doesn't make any sense. So what are they doing? Do you think they're not going to have Hugh switch? They'll have Ulf just switch?
I mean, I feel like it's a lot more. I feel like it's more in character for Ulf to switch.
Right. Well, I mean, they've been clearly setting us up for Ulf to switch from the first episode. Really,
is Hugh going to be like the double where we're like, oh, he's like trying to protect his wife, and yet he like somehow gets some like offer he can't refuse?
That's what I would assume.
Yeah, and that's ultimately we're all as the audience going like, of course Ulf left, and then all of a sudden Hugh turns around and is like, I'm coming too, and we're like, oh shit.
Yeah, but I also feel like as a non-book reader to kind of set Ulf up in the way where he's the more reckless one, the more irrational one, where
the one who's clearly more so in it for himself.
Yeah, the one who appears to that he could be the one to turn on a dime, and then to, assuming they do it well, have that dynamic switch where Hugh seems the more loyal one, and have him switch versus Ulf,
I can see it now, where literally the moment is going to be Ulf basically is tempted to switch, and he switches immediately, and then Hugh, there's a little bit more conflict, but because of both his wife and the fact that he's like, oh, I really don't have a choice, there's a little bit more conflict there, and there's a moment where you're like, oh, is Hugh ultimately going to help take Ulf down? And then instead it's like, oh no, I'm going to go with my fellow dragon.
It definitely makes you wonder if his wife will be used as some kind of blackmail or something.
That's what I can see as well. Because they've set them up from the beginning.
That probably does make
most sense. Has always been more honorable and always had kind of more let's say more noble aspirations than someone like Ulf, who has just been again set up as a drunken slob.
Absolutely,
that's true. Yeah. Ulf is an easy switch, no big deal. Although, man, I got to go back to him asking for the name Targaryen. What a move by man!
You had the fact that
that's unbelievable.
As soon as Daemon pulls that Dark Sister, you're like, is he gonna knight Ulf or is he gonna chop his head off? I really don't know which one.
They almost played it. Matt Smith almost played it like he was entertained by Ulf, like even trying for that.
Yeah,
and we know that Tom Bennett is we also know that the actor Tom Bennett is a very comedic actor. This is gonna blow your mind. Do you guys remember when Glenn Howerton almost left It's Always Sunny and he did that other show AP Bio on NBC? Do you guys remember that show?
I remember the show. I never watched it.
I know of it.
Okay, so I watched the first couple of episodes in there, and famously, so the premise of that is that Glenn Howerton's character, I can't remember his character's name, but his character is basically fired from Yale and basically has to take a job in his old hometown as a high school science teacher, and he basically couldn't give less of a crap. And he basically has this rivalry with this British person who ended up taking over his position. And the British person is like a super, super nice person. And naturally, because it's Glenn Howard, and he's like, I must destroy this person. This person is secretly evil. And guess who plays the British person?
Ulf.
Tom Bennett, Ulf the White, which when I found that out, I almost shit a brick because
that's
this
awesome.
guy, Tom Bennett, the character that Tom Bennett plays in AP Bio is nothing like Ulf. And again, the fact that he's playing the straight man to Glenn Howerton's whack job in that show really shows the layers that actor has. I'm like, wow, okay, that actor has more range to him than I originally thought, you know?
I've always stood by the fact that if an actor can do comedy well, they can do almost any genre well.
Yeah, and I stand by that. I stand by that. So ultimately, like I said, shorter episodes. So this is going to be a little bit of a shorter recap here. But again, setting us up for Rhaenyra's Mad Queen arc, setting us up for, okay, the turn with the Dragon Seeds may not happen in the way in which we initially thought. And the Darren twist, it's dumb in terms of the way that it kind of plays out. But again, I feel like we got at least one dumb thing in each episode so far this season. We're setting up Daemon to go and find Rhaena and ultimately fulfill the Nettles arc from the book. We also see in the weeks ahead, in next week's episode, we're catching up with maybe not Aemon, but with Kristen Cole and Gwen Hightower arriving at Harrenhal and dealing with dealing with Alice Rivers. You have Aegon and Larys continuing on their journey. You also had a brief mention in this episode that apparently Sunfire is dead and decaying at Rook's Rest. So whether that's the case, if it's not, also you have Rhaenyra offering up bounties for Vhagar and Sheepstealer. And I'm just like, okay, like, first of all, you have no money with which to pay bounties. Second of all, who in their right mind is going to ultimately do anything against Vhagar and Sheepstealer? Whom
directly from the book, my man. Directly from the book.
Oh, wow.
She offered bounties for them.
Yeah, but again, we've already established that the Rhaenyra at the show is much more competent and much more.
That's true.
So
yeah.
I'm like, maybe that was one instance where they needed to make a change.
Competent for now.
Do we think Tumbleton is episode 5? Or do we think it's the season finale? Because they could do either. They could do a setup.
Well, we still haven't gotten Butcher's Ball yet. And they have established that unlike the other battles that they've cut again, we only saw a little bit of the end of Fish Feed and they cut Honeywine completely. But we are definitely getting Butcher's Ball this season for sure. So
we know Tumbleton's under attack now. So there is a reason to go there within the next couple episodes if they want
and the fact that
I think we'll probably end up getting a scene or two, maybe from Hugh sneaking off or something to try and find his wife or some character.
We know that Hugh would see Vermithor landing at Tumbleton in next week's episode. So
see, I didn't watch the promo again.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was funny too because there was a shot that people saw in the trailer of Vermithor landing outside of Tumbleton, and people were immediately theorizing like, "Oh, is that the cannibal? Are we finally going to see the cannibal?" I'm like, guys, do you pause trailers and look at these shots? That's so obviously Vermithor. I know it's dark, but come on.
I'm ready.
I get it. I want to see the cannibal just as much as anybody else, but I'm telling you right now, we're not seeing the cannibal until Corlys Valerian's funeral at the end of the show. We're not seeing the cannibal until then.
Cannibal and Mushroom.
Yeah.
They need to give me
and we'll probably see Grey Ghost if and when Sunfire comes back and when Sunfire, mauls Grey Ghost, and we might see the cannibal then, but unlikely. How funny would it be if the cannibal eats Sunfire before it has a chance to kill after all is said and done?
I feel like they'll give us a scene of just teasing him and then just one scene of him just wrecking carnage.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're really laying the seeds to the Sunfire is dead.
You don't think we're getting Sunfire back?
No, I think they're heavily
wanting
the audience
so that
audience to think that is not going to happen, and then he's going to pop out of nowhere and it's going to be super awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, come on, they even said they're Cole left a garrison there, and I'm like the information. I'm like, how up to date is their information about Sunfire being at Rook's Rest? I'm not sure. It's been a little bit of time since then. So. All right, so with that being said, that is our recap of House of the Dragon, Season 3, Episode 3, Rhaenyra Triumphant. We will be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Luke, I know it'll be dependent on if you're able to make it on. Fingers crossed that you will be able to as well. See. Eli, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
Yeah, same place as always, folks. I got an Instagram. You want to find me? Just how my last name's spelled on the screen. You can find me at E_Holicky45. Feel free to shoot me a DM. Always love talking storytelling.
Luke, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
Go to Franchise Addicts everywhere. Check out our last episode on 2016's Arrival. And then we've got a new series coming out Don't know when, because I am going on vacation, so that we might have to delay those episodes for a while. So catch up on our old ones. We did a Independence Day episode, so it's Independence Day weekend. Check that out.
There you go. Indeed.
Very
You guys
nice.
can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV Podcast across all platforms. Be sure to subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify. Check out the GoFundMe for the 6 Degrees film at the link in the description as well. And as always, people, 12 seasons of this short film, and watch more fucking movies. We'll see you guys next week on House of the Dragon.